so, just drop a question in the chat and we'll do our best to make sure it gets to the panelists by the end of the hour. So go ahead at any point to leave those questions in the chat. You don't have to wait until the end. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce our moderators. So our moderator today is Jennifer Fraser from the Innovation and Partnerships Office. Jennifer is a business professional who's focused her last 20 years on commercializing early stage technology. So whether that's been for startups, for venture capital, or for a university, the goal has always been the same, which is to ensure that technologies have the resources and the plans that they need to make it to market. So Jennifer received her MBA from Ivy Business School in 2002, and she's performed technology and business due diligence on investment opportunities and built an extensive network of industry experts to advise her. So currently, we're lucky to have Jennifer at U of T leading a team of excellent innovation and entrepreneurship professionals as the Director of Innovation. I'm going to let Jen go ahead and introduce our panelists. So thanks so much, Jen. Go ahead.
Jen, I think you're muted right now.
Sorry. Thank you very much. Anyway, thank you. I just wanted to welcome everybody to the session today. I hope we can get to everybody's questions. So as Hannah said, please put them in the chat throughout the talk. We are very excited to have 3 representatives from highly successful U of T companies here today to really just tell you about a little bit about their journey. You know, how they got started, where they are today, what their technology is, and why it inspired them or how they got inspired to start what they started. We aim to inspire you as the audience, at the very least, demystify a little bit about the process of taking a technology out of a university lab and how to translate that into a potential business opportunity. I've been working at that for a long time. Others are obviously new to it. We're always willing at the Innovations and Partnerships Office to help and answer any questions you have. But today is not about IPO. It's about the success of our 3 entrepreneurs. All of these companies are actually contributing to 3 major considerations that the government has brought forward as priorities. Those are the wanting to address climate change and use clean energy. Second is actually increasing intellectual property awareness and how that is important to companies' growth and prosperity. And of course, economic development for a government is always really important, and all 3 of these organizations are contributing to that. So with that, I'm going to very briefly introduce our 3 panelists. We originally had 4. Unfortunately, Andrew White of Char Technologies is not feeling well today, so he's had to bow out. But I'm happy to answer some very high-level questions about Char Technologies. I do know about the company and the experience that Andrew went through, though his website is very good at articulating all the great things that Char is doing. But with that, we will now introduce our panelists, and then in turn, I will ask each of them to introduce themselves more fully and their company. But with us today, we have Murray Thompson, who is the co-founder and technical director of Aurora Hydrogen. He is also a professor at the University of Toronto. We also have Alex Ip, who is the co-founder and director of partnerships at CERT Systems Incorporated. And finally, we have Olu Ablajando. You're gonna have to correct the pronunciation, sorry, Olu. He's the founder and CEO of Ready. So I think I'm actually gonna start with you, Olu. If you can describe a little bit about yourself, your company, and the journey that you've taken to this point.
Yeah, can you guys hear me? Yeah, okay. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for that introduction. So my name is Olu, like Jennifer mentioned. I'm the CEO and founder of Ready. Basically, what we do at Ready is we build solutions, hardware and software, integrated hardware and software systems that provides clean and reliable electricity to the energy regions of the world. So currently, we are currently operational in Nigeria, and the goal is to move to some other part of Africa and Southeast Asia. But what we build is we build very compatible systems that people could use to access electricity. A little bit of foundation about the problem. I came all the way from Nigeria in 2017 to University of Toronto to study engineering, and in the process, I saw how my personal productivity like quadrupled when for the first time ever, I had access to 24/7 electricity at Massey College, and I was like, wow, if this could actually like create some significant change to people's lives, that means probably the first bulk year, like 24 years of my life, I've probably could actually be more better. And I felt as coming from the engineering background, I and all the with all the experience I have with engineering and some in entrepreneurship, I could actually combine that to like get out to like build a solution that people could use to access electricity, while obviously looking at the barriers that are limiting that adaptability of some systems in our markets. Like for example, in Africa, most people live on less than $5 per day, and because of that, any solution that you build needs to be a solution that will be easily affordable to people and kind of perfectly integrate into their lifestyle. So that was the notion as a grad student, and I started that journey with obviously all the support from University of Toronto as well as a grad research student. Then doing a couple of research with my guys back home. We interviewed over 200 Nigerians that lack access to electricity, try to understand why are they not adapting and why they are not adopting existing systems, and in process try to like map out what we are going to build with basically thinking through basically thinking through like first principle thinking, which is like tear down the present assumptions that exist and try to build a solution that works. A solution that is very effective, but at the same time extremely affordable. The challenge has always been combining affordability and quality. So our goal was to how do we combine that in such a way that people are able to afford that system and also like access electricity through them. So we set out to do Ready. It's a very long journey from jumping into U of T's 3D labs in technology, to the library, to consulting with a lot of like mentors at U of T, joining a lot of accelerators, including Archery, Impact Center, UTES, and getting our product out. I think the toughest part was getting our first product out, which is also like hiring some U of T students, external students, like bring up the technology together, given the fact that we had like limited resources and limited resources, and we also had to like we have to just like optimize basically what we have. We did that all through my time at U of T, and luckily as I was finishing my grad degree, we had a working prototype. We tested them in Nigeria. We got very positive feedback, and we also got some funding from some of our partners, and that was how Ready took off. So it was a business that took off. It was a business that was started in U of T that took off when I was in U of T. When I finished my master's students, I now had all the time to like focus and like scale it forward. So right now, Ready serves over 1,500 households and businesses in Nigeria, and our goal is to double that before the end of the year. We are manufacturing, building, and we built a couple of like software innovations that we leverage to optimize how people adopt the system as well. And our IP specifically is always around it's around our integration. But I think I should mention something that when we set out to build, we actually didn't build with the mindset of like we need to get an IP, we need to have an IP. The goal was that we build in the lens of like we want to solve a solution, we want to solve a problem. So in the process of solving a problem and thinking about how to uniquely solve a problem, the IP part started like coming together because we knew we had to build the defensibility. That's when the IP come. But it's because it's very important to think from that lens of like I am trying out to solve a problem that I understand, and breaking down that problem gives you a very unique way of like solving it. And when you now solve it uniquely, you are able to like get like a unique intellectual property that could be used to either cover the system or to defend the system or build a moat around the solution that you build. So that's a little about what we did. I don't know if I'm probably like I'll probably be able to like talk more about specific stuff as the conference evolves. Thank you, Jennifer.
Jennifer, you're taking mute. Yeah.
I can't hear you, Jennifer.
Okay, sorry. So I got out of that you you came from Nigeria to the University of Toronto. You felt there was a problem for access to energy within remote regions within Nigeria. You wanted to solve that problem. So I love that idea. You accessed not only the research labs at the university, but a lot of the different programs, including Hatchery, UTest, and others to really get your business model fleshed out. The hardest part was getting your first customer. You worked with your partners to finance more of it. And now you've got units being sold throughout Nigeria.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm wondering if I keep breaking up there, but thank you so much for that. We're going to move on to Alex, who again, CERT Systems Incorporated.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer, and thanks everyone for joining today. Happy to be here. So I'm a co-founder of CERT Systems. What we do is we've developed a technology to convert carbon dioxide into basic chemicals. And we're approaching that as, if you look at a lot of the products that we use every day, if you go all the way back to the beginning of that value chain, oftentimes you're starting with some sort of chemical. And of course, most of those chemicals are going to be coming from fossil fuels. The processes to make them also are fairly emitting. And so by using CO2 as a source, we can make that circular. And of course, by using electricity to enable that, we are able to tap into a lot of that renewable electricity that's coming online. And a little bit about my journey to starting up CERT in recent years. I joined the University of Toronto over 10 years ago as a PhD student in Ted Sargent's group in engineering. At that time, I was working on developing new solar materials, actually. So at the time, solar was pretty expensive. We were looking at ways of making it cheaper. By the time I graduated, as I'm sure a lot of PhD students feel, I was a little bit done with the research that I was doing. I actually kind of wanted to get out of the lab a little bit instead. And so at that time, we were actually starting up a new research program in the lab, which was around converting CO2. Weren't totally sure how we would go about it, but I had the opportunity at that point to move away from the bench and more into partnerships and business development role to try and grow out that research program. And so I took that, and that was really exciting for me because I got to see the research kind of in a larger context with how like wider industry looks at it. And in a way, looking back at it now, that's kind of like the early customer discovery work that you would have to do in a startup. I spoke with a number of different companies and showed them what we were working on, and we actually got a lot of feedback very early on to say, hey, going in this direction doesn't make much sense. We don't like that, but it would be really good if you started developing technology like towards these end products. And so actually really at the research phase, we started doing that. And that really helped bring us to where we are today. Another big thing that happened during that time was they opened up this XPRIZE competition for carbon dioxide converting technologies in around 2016. And even though at the time our research was very, very early stage, we decided to join that. And what that did was it gave us some really, really ambitious scale up goals with very, very short timelines. And really, by giving us a common goal to work around, we were able to kind of rally the research team around that and start scaling up, a lot earlier than you typically would in an academic group. And we found a lot of success in that. We actually ended up making it to the finals of that, where we competed in over 2019, 2020. And because we had such success in the scaling there, that's when we were really thinking like, hey, we're onto something. This can work. It's not research that's perpetually, 20, 30 years out. This is something that if we really start working on now, we can get it to market a lot sooner. And so that was kind of a catalyst for getting us out there. We were fortunate to receive some funding in 2020 from Natural Resources Canada through the Breakthrough Energy Solutions Canada program, which helped us to kind of start up the company and start hiring people, get some space. And through U of T, it was very helpful in getting us started up. First of all, through the X Prize, there was a lot of support in helping us compete there. It was kind of a unique situation for the university, but of course, all the different support structures that exist in the university that you realize you don't have in a small company. I think relying on that was very helpful. A lot of the IP and insurance and legal support was very helpful. But then of course, in terms of then getting the company started in kind of 2020, we went through the UTest program, really great educational resources to help us kind of direct that and think about how do we go from research, like a research project, into something that's can be a viable company. And I think that that was really helpful for us. And so we wrapped up the X Prize at the end of 2020, and since about 2021, we've been working on kind of building CERT, building the team, and continuing to develop the technology. And so that's kind of my journey here. Happy to talk about it more.
Okay, thanks so much, Alex. I'm going to do the same thing to you that I did to Olu, which is kind of summarize what I heard, which is this CERT Systems as a company really started as a research project, I'm going to say 2018, with the X Prize, the third level of the X Prize as a research project. Lots of resources in terms of getting the research going, access to those funds, and sounds like access to partners so that you could really understand which direction to take the technology so that you were addressing a true market need. Is that fair enough to say? And then as you realize that this actually had some opportunity to become a company, accessing some of the government grants that allowed for the formation and support of the early stages of the company. And I guess those partnerships will be ongoing partnerships from the research lab actually into the company as well. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of the companies that we had research partnerships with at the University of Toronto, we're continuing to work with them, exploring pilot opportunities and stuff. So it's a really kind of a natural extension of the R&D work that was done at the university and moving that into commercialization.
Okay, great. And throughout this process, because I'm kind of here representing the IP matters side of the presentation, can you tell us a little bit about the intellectual property strategy or what you guys were kind of paying attention to as you went through this journey?
Yeah, for sure. And so again, through the research program, we had developed a number of pieces of IP. Quite frankly, like much more than we were taking into CERT, because I think one thing that we had to figure out a little bit was how to narrow down to, what are the kind of core things that we need to take forward as a company, and make sure we get those and are able to kind of make sure that we're protected as a company from any sort of external factors, be able to show, to partners and potential investors that we have what's needed to move forward as a company. And so that was something that we worked with the university and the Innovations and Partnerships Office to kind of help identify, what's kind of the core things that we need there. What are the best, like how do we best protect that, and how do we set ourselves up for future improvements? Because of course, it's not. While we did a lot of great work in the R&D, there's still like a lot more work that needs to be done to develop the technology. And I think setting ourselves up to have a good foundation to build upon as we move forward is something very important. And working with IPO on that has been helpful in kind of helping to identify, what are the things that we need in order to build on that moving forward.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Alex. Really appreciate it. And Murray, last but not least, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and how Aurora Hydrogen came to be and where you're at today.
Yeah, so I'm Murray Thompson. I'm a professor in the Department of Mechanical Industrial Engineering. I'm also a co-founder and vice president of Aurora Hydrogen, and I'll do something different. I'll use slides for this. Hopefully this helps. Can people see the slides?
Yeah, if you can make it full screen, that's great. There you go.
Is it full screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so this will be very quick. So I'm presenting Aurora Hydrogen here, and our focus is on low-cost distributed hydrogen. Moving hydrogen around is very expensive and very difficult, and so the idea is to make distributed hydrogen. The opportunity is very large. The projections are the hydrogen market will grow by a factor of 10 to a $2.5 trillion industry. So there's definitely an opportunity there, but we see a problem. The problem we see is that electrolyzers are generally low scale and high cost, so they can be distributed, but they're expensive. SMRs, because of the carbon sequestration needs, typically are low cost, but can't be distributed. They have to be in very large scale installations. And so we see there's a need for low cost but distributed hydrogen production technology. And so here's our technology. So what we're doing is this is methane pyrolysis. Natural gas comes in. We heat the natural gas with electricity, which makes microwaves, and produce hydrogen and solid carbon and minimal direct emissions of CO2. Yeah, there's no catalyst in our approach. There are a number of different methane pyrolysis approaches. We don't use a catalyst. We don't use a plasma. If you're familiar with this technology, you'll know there are other companies that do that. But we think our approach is good because microwaves tend to be very efficient. Also, microwaves direct the heat directly where you need it. So if you're used to microwaves, if you have a coffee cup, the water gets hot, but the coffee cup stays cold. That same idea is it gets the heat where you want it, right? So so we're producing hydrogen and solid carbon. The solid carbon, there's lots of applications for that. Graphene, materials, cement, building materials, all sorts of different things, steel industry. And of course, our main focus is on the hydrogen. So we think that our process is low cost, but also scalable, small scale to large scale. And it's 80% less electricity than green hydrogens. That's an advantage. No new pipelines required. So you can place this where the need for hydrogen is. So you don't have to pipe around hydrogen, and you also don't have to pipe around CO2 in the case of steam methane reforming, SMR, which is the conventional technology that's used dominates the world production of hydrogen at the current time. And just about patenting, we've put in a patent application quite a while ago. We got a response back and said all the claims are novel and inventive, so we're pretty happy about that. So so I was asked to give a little bit of a story of our journey. So hopefully this gives you a sense of it. So there was an idea by myself, and the idea was to use microwaves to make hydrogen. but I didn't know much about microwaves. So I asked Professor Erin Babicki to collaborate, and she agreed, which was great. And so I'm an expert in pyrolysis. She's an expert in microwaves. So we have microwave pyrolysis. So that's great. But we didn't know anything about business. So we asked Andrew Gillis, who actually has a PhD, but he's had a very long career in industry and technology development. He's a vice president until recently of another company. And so he joined us. And so, but we needed a structure. So we created a business, and each of us had a 1/3 share. We immediately saw the need for IP protection. So we submitted a patent. And but we also need to prove the technology. So we did some bench scale experiments. But we needed business advice. Technology is only half the story. Business is the other half. And so we joined Creative Destruction Labs, which is across the world, in fact, but originally based out of University of Toronto. And we're part of their, we just graduated from their program, and that was very, very helpful on the business side. We needed a scale, so we needed to raise money. So we just raised 10 million US, and we did it this week, in fact. And now with the money, we build a company. So we're going for sort of a lean company structure. So we're outsourcing most things that aren't technical. And so we have a lot of contractor, consultants and contract companies to handle all sorts of aspects of the company that are not technical. But we're also starting to hire employees and scale up the company. We need a demo site. So we asked a partner company for space, expertise, and staff. So that saves a lot of money. And that's great. We need more money. Building hydrogen production equipment is extremely expensive. So we've already applied for government matching funding. And now we're building, starting to build the design and build the demo plant. And that's the next crucial step.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Murray. Okay, so all of you have kind of touched on this idea of fundraising. Murray, you alluded to the idea that you're applying for more additional matching funds from government. I just wanted to highlight very specific programs that are designed to do that. So I was just curious, is it SDTC funding that you're applying for, or is it something else?
So we're applying to, or have applied to SDTC, Sustainable Development Technology Canada. It's the federal government. We've applied to Natural Resources Canada, which has a big hydrogen fund thing going. We've applied to Natural Gas Innovations Fund, which is a consortium of gas producers and distributors. We've also applied to the companies based in Alberta. So we've applied to Alberta Innovates. And we've also applied to ERA, which is Emissions Reductions Alberta. And there's also a hydrogen hub in Alberta, which we plan to apply to. So we've applied to 6-7 different programs. So, yeah.
Yeah, so that highlights for me one key consideration I think every company should think about, which is, where do I want to locate my company? Are there government supports to help me in my technology and business development requirements, my fundraising needs? So you've talked about the idea that your company is actually located in Alberta. Part of that reason probably is some of the additional funding opportunities there are in Alberta. The government of Canada, for sure, is federally. Government is very interested in supporting new companies in this space, as well as small and medium-sized businesses. Now, so thank you very much for that. Anybody else, Alex or Olu, any other kinds of programs that you might be applying to help with the development and financing of your company? Anything in addition to what Murray has said?
I think we touched on most of the big programs. I think for us, certainly, there's a lot happening at the federal level. So Natural Resources Canada is where we received our initial funding from. And we've applied for some other programs that continue to bring things out for for carbon capture and utilization projects. We have also applied for funding through the Next Gen Manufacturing Canada, the supercluster. So they have some programs as well, which have been helpful for us, and so we currently have a project with them. And we've also applied to some other similar superclusters. There's the Clean Resources Innovation Network, I think it's called, CRIN. So we had previously applied for them. So there's a number of programs, and particularly I would say this time at the federal level for clean tech companies.
And by the way, that is, I think, clean tech is definitely a priority within Canada. There are other countries, obviously, the whole world is concerned about climate change. So it would be interesting, actually, if Andrew was here, because he started CHAR quite a while ago and had a lot of struggles in terms of finding financing. And because of that, went public with his company to finance a lot of the things that he needed to do. So it's a bit of a different story than the group that we have here today. But I also think it was a very different environment now than it was when he started. So I just wanted to put a tout out there that, you know, if you're thinking about a clean tech company opportunity, now is a good time, because we do have a lot of these programs available for helping early stage companies. Olu, your focus is internationally in Nigeria. Is there a different landscape for you, or things that you're trying to access to you know, get the financing you need to build your company?
Yeah, I mean, mine was a little bit different, but still, there's still a lot of like around what's going on here in Canada, because we are headquartered here in Canada, actually. But we have we also look into like the US. We joined an accelerator called Thought Derivative. We explored some stuff with like MIT, some of the schools in the US as well. So there's quite a lot of like funding and stuff also international in the US. And sometimes there's also some local funds as well. So for us, we're looking both in Canada, looking in the US, and also looking to like specifically Nigeria, some funding in Nigeria. Like one of our big investor was from Nigeria. Was Shell Nigeria. So there's a lot of like other like the other stuff that I can explore. The goal is just to be like just be within that circle and just subscribe to newsletters. Then, I mean, for me, I basically just subscribe to as much as any community I could see, so I just know what's going on, so that when the opportunities comes into play, when the opportunity surfaces, you can always like jump on it, basically.
Yeah. So not to point this out specifically, but equity, diversity, and inclusiveness are also a big driver for the University of Toronto. So we have an organization called the Black Founders Network. Have you been involved in that as well?
Yes. We're part of the accelerate companies there as well, and yeah, we've got there's also a lot of support from the university, especially when you are taking things off. For us, unlike Murray, we actually our cost of building our system is not that much. Actually, for a couple of prototypes, so just a couple of $1,000. So it was it just did that kind of a jump start, and we got all the jump start from like we got stuff from like the RBC. We even like presented at price competitions as well. Like got some money from there, 10K, 50, 20K, that kind of stuff. And I kind of just use that to validate the journey. And what I've seen is that the more you can validate where you're going, the more you're able to unlock more capital.
That's right. So I'm going to stop here and just encourage the audience to please ask any questions you like, put them in the chat. I will try to have them addressed by our panel by the end of the hour. We have 20 minutes left, so don't be shy. In the meantime, I will continue to ask the questions that I've prepared. So here's a question, you know, again, I'm going to go back a little bit to just relationship with the university, intellectual property. Couple of things to point out. So first of all, because clean tech is a world wide issue, I just wanted to let you guys and the audience know that there are a lot of the patent examination or patent offices in countries around the world are expediting and creating low-cost opportunities for anything in clean tech. Have any of you explored that or been exposed to that? And if so, what's been your experience?
Actually, I haven't dealt with that, unfortunately. So that's actually really interesting to know, and something we'll be on the lookout for sure.
Yeah. So again, good time for clean tech. The other question I had, again, a little bit related to intellectual property. Apologies if I'm harping on this, but there is also an organization here in Ontario called the Innovation Asset Collective. Their focus is very much on climate change and clean tech. Have you ever heard of or been working with this organization? They are focused on small to medium-sized enterprises, so we might not be there yet, but just consider trying to understand how much marketing they've done to let the audiences know or new companies know about their initiatives and how they can help.
I can speak to that a bit, or go ahead, Olive, actually.
I mean, we actually did something with them. I think that was earlier last year or something. But we're still like within the circle there, just following up on like what's going on and like trying to like get updates on that. I mean, especially for the IAC. So that's for us. That's just like trying to like keep them in the loop and like just I think we was introduced to them by the University of Toronto as well, and we just keep that conversation ongoing, basically. Yeah, Alex.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, with the IAC, we actually recently joined them. They have a tier for associate members. So actually for smaller companies, it doesn't cost anything to join. And what's nice, they've really been kind of adding more like IP education and building like internal IP strategy stuff, which we've been starting to get more involved in, and I think has been very helpful. And they also, one thing that's nice, they do have some granting opportunities as well for developing IP strategy and hiring IP lawyers to do some stuff. So we did receive some, and to the point on EDI components, the funding we received was through the Women in IP program that they have there. So my co-founder Christine is obviously qualified. So we received some funding for that, which is, helpful because some of the legal stuff can get expensive and sometimes grants don't let you pay for that. So nice that there's some dedicated funding towards some of those legal expenses.
Great, that's very useful. Thank you. So I have a question now from the audience. It's actually from Shatha for Murray. First of all, congratulations on closing your current investment. To remind everybody, that investment was $10 million. How challenging was it to secure that investment, and how many pitches and presentations did you have to make in order to make it happen?
Yeah, so we started in essentially November. So November, December, we had sort of what we called our sort of low-key quiet campaign. So basically just making contacts, getting to know people, not trying to push term sheets or anything like that. So we talked to well over 100 different venture capital and corporate finance companies. We talked to people in Europe, we talked to people in the US, Canada, and Japan. Essentially, we went for every single thing we could, every company we could find in the energy space, clean tech energy space. That's ones. Then come January, that's when we got the sort of more serious campaign where we're trying to push towards term sheets. So we're trying to get people to have a real to really provide the funding. And so obviously we're narrowing down the pack, he might say, to the cup. So we had maybe, I don't know, 10 different companies that were pretty serious, and then we we got our, probably about, I don't know the exact date, but maybe by end of February, March, we had our first term sheet. So for those who are not familiar with that, term sheet is when someone gives you the actual terms of financing. And with that, of course, you want to very quickly go to everyone else and try to get term sheets from them. And so we had a radically different type of term sheet from a corporate. And then eventually we got another term sheet from a San Francisco VC company. And then we negotiated and we took that one. It does take longer to get the money in the bank. Takes longer than you think. So it probably took 2 months to get the money in the bank, even after everything was pretty well decided. So it's it takes longer than you think. So you do have to start early. I think 6 months from the very beginning, so from October to actually, and we have money in the bank just this week. So you can sort of get an idea of how long it took. Just a comment is that, lots in the news about venture capital companies pulling back now, which is something to be aware of. In our case, with the corporate and the comment, the Wall Street Journal article yesterday or 2 days ago was that the corporate funding is better, stronger now. And that was definitely the case with us. We had a lot of corporate funding as opposed to venture capital funding. So that was good in this environment. That really helped us.
There is a lot to be said for strategic investors. So when you talk
That's
about
right.
corporates, are they your potential customer potentially, or co?
Yeah, they would all
development?
they would all be potential customers or potential purchasers of the company. So it's hard to say. These are some of the largest companies in the world. So I can't rate, and for next 2 weeks, I can't say exactly who they are, but you'd all know the name of the company. They're some of the world's biggest companies. And so yeah, they have sort of vast resources, which is very helpful when you're doing a very expensive, capital-intensive industry. But also, yes, they are potential customers. They're also potential purchasers of the company.
Okay, and I was going to ask potential customers, potential purchasers, how did you go about identifying them? And when you worked with these large corporate entities, do they each have a venture arm?
Yes.
Or is it, okay.
Yeah, they all have venture arms. There's lots and lots of them. So when I say we talk to corporates, we're not really talking to the companies themselves as much, although we use our contacts, but we're talking to their venture arms. That's what. So all the energy companies have their own venture arms pretty well. All the big ones anyway. So yeah, so we're talking to them, and they operate somewhat like a VC to a certain extent. But yes, as you say, they have strategic reasons, not necessarily. They don't really care about making money off the investment. Like a venture capital firm, they're looking at it, how it would fit in and help the company as a whole. So yeah. So that's. Oh, and just I'll just do a shout out for Creative Destruction Labs. That was very helpful on the business and financing side. The mentors are very knowledgeable, and that was very helpful.
So the other part of that question is actually how you went about identifying who those potential investors would be, and how important is it to get the right strategic investor?
Well, I think during our sort of what you might call the cold campaign, we did everything. So we did dozens and dozens of cold calls off the internet where you're just typing into a sort of a, just like, you're not even talking to a person, you're just sending it off. And it actually that worked. But yeah, using your network, using people, we use people through Creative Destruction Labs. We used contacts of our own. I knew a lot of corporate people, so we talked to them about their venture arms. But we cold called a ton of people, and that works too. So you really I think you should just try everything. So just send it off to everyone and then decide later. That, I mean, I don't think you filter up front. I think you filter at the end. So it's, so we just sort of blasted to everyone we could think of, and then and once we get, that's the whole thing about term sheets. You want to get as many term sheets as you can all at the same time. And the idea is then you start picking and choosing and maybe playing one company off against the other, which we definitely did.
To that point, I just want to put a little plug out. The Innovations and Partnerships Office, we utilize our Deep Tech Download, which is a quarterly newsletter out to purely VCs that have signed up for the Deep Tech Download. We constantly, that list of VCs is growing exponentially. And again, it's just this idea that in the newsletter, we're putting out which companies are raising money and for what, how much they're raising, as well as some recent accomplishments from U of T startups. So if you have an affiliation with our office, that's kind of how you get on our list of, hey, can we help you in advertising out to our network? So just making everybody in the audience aware, as well as yourselves, if there is an opportunity for us to help you along, we'd be very willing to do that and be happy to put you on our distribution list. Alex, your and Olu's financing journeys were a little bit different. Do you just want to give us a little bit on, who was your first financer? And actually, Olu, you said getting that first customer was your hardest hurdle. How did you overcome it? How about we start with you?
Yeah, so I mean, for us, it was a little bit, it was a very bumpy road. Because we needed to even validate product market fits as far as because we are basically we are more like a B2C, B2B business, but first B2B. So we actually, our first funding came from competitions. Actually, we basically did a couple of I think it was we applied for a couple of the Cisco Clean Energy, Cisco Global Problem Solvers Challenge, and we got 10,000 grant from that. And also I think we got 5K from MIT, and that was what we actually started using to build prototypes and try it out. Then we also jump on this program by the IEEE, Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineering, and we also got some funding from them as well. So for us, it was basically getting as much funding as possible. Because of two reasons. Number one, we're trying to do something that is new here. It's a very the market is it's very unstable, and there's a lot of just limitations around what you can do. So everybody's like, okay, go and try it out. I'm gonna just give you this, you try it out. So what we did was we spent, I think the whole of 2020, 2019 was taking those small 5K capital before we now start going into more advanced level capital with Shell. The moment we're able to show some results, then we start getting into 6 digits of capital from Shell, from Third Derivative as well, which is RMI. We also got some capital from some DFIs. So DFIs are government, non-government organization like USAID. We got some funding also from this Sustainable Development Canada. Then we also got some. Then we also right now we are raising a seed round. We are specifically having conversation with Shell as well. So it's always this ongoing conversation. Just like Maurice said, it's a lot of for us. Ours is a little bit dicey because you need to sell, and you need to prove you have revenue, and you need to prove that there's a market there before people actually before you unlock more capital. For us, majority of the conversation we're having now is that, okay, what have you done the past couple of months? Then how does that how we use that to unlock capital? And sometimes the funding also comes in the mix of sometimes direct equity and convertible notes, which is venture debt. Some are trade equity. So it's just just kind of a mixed patch. But I think the goal is just like depending on what you're building. Like Murray said, these things takes a lot of time. You need to be patient with yourself. But at the same time, you just have to also be like laser focused on the problem you are trying to solve, because some problem requires a lot of money. Like what Murray is doing obviously requires like a lot of money. While some problem only requires like probably like 25K to like jumpstart, which is for us 25K was more than enough to like just go like build out the first prototype. It's totally different when you are building very giant like systems at all. So
Yeah,
that's
I was
so
just-
like,
yeah.
yeah.
I was going to say, so your situation is actually very different from Murray's in that you were selling small units that took a certain amount of money to make, and really it was that customer acquisition, and then we call it bootstrapping. You make sales in order to make enough money to make the next batch of product, and then it just grows from there. Whereas Murray, I would understand that you would need tens of millions of dollars to even build the first plant, right? So you're going to have different strategies and different ways of getting there. Alex, do you have anything to add, I guess, from your own journey? What's sort of your vision for the future? And, we always ask this question as well. Maybe you want to address it in this question as it relates to financing, but, what's your company's plans in terms of finding some of the financing that you need going forward? And how do you build a company? Is there a place for the university in those plans? Maybe it's access to students, maybe it's something a little more complex.
Yeah, so I don't have too much to add to kind of the financing that Olu and Murray mentioned. I think going for a diversity of prospects and sources, I think, is really, really important. You can't really narrow that down ahead of time. We were fortunate to get some government granting, also talking with corporates for some initial partnerships. And then in terms of moving forward and leveraging the university, I think particularly for technology that do have R&D to develop the product, I think working with the students and the professors as like a source of expertise, kind of further developing technology. Certainly, we're always looking at students that work on the technology as potential kind of talent pipelines for us. I think that's a really important space, especially because when the tech is pretty specialized, there's not that many people in the world that have worked in similar spaces. So you, as a spin out from the university, we know that a bunch of the students have worked on that tech. And then of course there's other sorts of funding programs you can access for R&D. I'm sure a lot of professors and students are familiar with the NSERC partnerships programs and MyTax programs and that sort of thing, which helps us to be able to get additional people to work on projects and develop the technology and leverage more funding that way.
Great. Okay, we have 3 minutes left. If there's any questions from the audience, we will certainly take them. Any, I guess, final words of wisdom, I guess, is maybe what I'm asking for from each of you. So we'll start with you, Murray.
I think some of the things that really helped us was collaborating with, like, in our company, was bringing people in with other technology expertise, with other business experience instead of just like myself running it by myself, like that, really collaborating and bringing them in as equity partners, that really made a difference. I think the mentorship program, Creative Destruction Labs, was very helpful. But also you need to move fast. Technology moves very fast, and if you have a good idea, someone else has the exact same idea somewhere else too, right? So ideas don't just sort of sit. You can't sit on the idea. The moment will pass, right? So you do have to. It's not just about developing the technology, it's about developing the technology fast enough to seize the opportunity that's there, because the opportunity probably won't be there 2 years from now.
Great. Okay, Alex?
Yeah, I think building on some of that, I think really realizing that, you know, even if you're founding a company, you're not the expert in everything. And so really finding those experts, similar to what Maria said, to, you know, help you build things quickly, help you take care of different parts of the business that you can learn on the fly, but it's best to have some mentors and experts to do that. And also getting engaged with potential customers early to really direct that product development. There's really nothing worse than, like, you know, developing something in a vacuum and then trying to go to market and realize that nobody wants what you're trying to sell. So I think getting them involved early is really, really, really helpful, and then you'll have a customer waiting when you do that.
Great, thank you, and great words of advice, because I couldn't agree with you more. Olu, any last words of wisdom for our audience?
Yeah, I think Maria and Alex have said it all. Lastly, I would just say, just do what you need to do. It's a very, very interesting learning experience. Sometimes very bumpy, not as smooth. But like, it's also very, very exciting, and it comes to a lot of like learning. So if you look at it from that lens of like, it's just like yeah, it's a kind of a learning loop. You kind of enjoy the experience and just keep creating. Yeah.
Okay. And one last question we did get from the audience, you know, what is a really good way to meet like-minded people and seize opportunities to build a startup team? Anybody?
I mean, for me, I'm gonna say it's most of the time it's always there's always a lot of like communities around. But building anything, especially as far as startup is concerned, actually requires also knowing people enough so that there's not going to be any problem in the future. It's actually, I mean, I'm one of those people that are totally against the whole like speed dating when you are trying to like create co-founders or create relationships. It actually takes a while. It takes months sometimes to build trust and understand that, okay, because even if you are an expert, I may not be able to work with you. So there's a lot of like things that goes into the whole like synergy. So there's a lot of there's no hard rule about like this how it's done, and there's obviously anything can happen. You can meet someone and just work with them on stuff right away, or just know what works for you and just go with it.
Okay, so I think the overall message there: network, 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 meet people, get to know people. Eventually you will identify people that can help you in your journey. That is all time we have today. I want to thank again all of our panelists. Really appreciate your time. This has been recorded. Hopefully the internet glitches are not there. Sometimes we're on my end, but thank you again to all three of you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anything else, Hannah?
No, that's great. Thank you, Jennifer, so much for moderating a great discussion. And thank you to all three of our panelists for joining us. And thanks everyone for coming and listening to the chat. We really appreciate it. And have a great long weekend, everybody.
Great, thank you.